Hi everyone, my name is Courtney. I write under the pen names Lyra Parish and I'm one half of the USA Today best-selling duo Kennedy Fox. Today I'm making a special video for Catherine Cowles, who had requested that I make this video to my face. So girl, this one is for you, and we're gonna talk about 3 mistakes that I made when I first started publishing. To give you a quick background on me and my journey, I started writing young adult books in 2011. In summer of 2013, I decided that I wanted to start writing romance because I love a good romance story, and I self-published my first novel in January of 2014. So that gives you my history. Since 2011, the very beginning of 2011, I have basically been writing religiously. There's not been a point when I have not been writing, but there has been a point when I didn't know what I should be writing. So under Lyra Parish, I released 8 solo books before Kennedy Fox was born. There were a lot of mistakes that I made during that time period. I feel like the romance boom kind of happened in 2013. I feel like a lot of people started in the 2013-2014 time period. I don't call us the seniors. I think we're more like the sophomore class because there were tons of people before us. But with that being said, there were a lot of mistakes that I made whenever I first started self-publishing. I'm going to kind of describe those things to you, or at least the top 3. Otherwise, this video will be 5 hours long. And I hope that if you are new in your journey, that this might help you recognize if you're doing the same things that I did, and possibly you will be able to avoid them. This is a disclaimer. I just want to say that I by no means know everything at all. I do not know everything. I know enough where I could probably do a 50 video series on marketing for indie authors, but I don't know it all. And I'm not gonna sit here and act like I know everything. So that is a disclaimer. Everything that I talk about on this channel is things that I've learned from personal experience, things that I have personally seen. I'm not using a lot of hypotheticals. Like, these are real mistakes that I made. And there is one thing that is for certain, guys. I will continue to make mistakes. Even after 25 books, I will 100% continue to make mistakes. I'm always learning. I'm always trying to be a sponge and absorb as much information as I can, because this industry is always changing. So you have to be ahead of the game. You have to put your best foot forward. Let me come up with some more analogies here, but I don't know everything. I know a lot, and I'm here to share that with you. But I just wanted to say that real quick before we get started. So the number one thing that I feel like I kind of messed up on was branding. And I know that I am not the only person who published in the 2013, 14, even 15 time period that really didn't know a lot about branding. With that being said, I love marketing mainly because I have an analytical mindset. You all know I'm an accountant in real life. So like numbers and ROI and all this stuff like really interests me, and I love stuff about marketing. And with marketing comes branding. For me, it was important that my books were branded, and so I'm gonna show you some old covers that I had for my Weakness series, and we're gonna start with Weak for Him. This was cover number 1. This was cover number 2. These are old school covers, guys. Like, these were the very first ones. And this is cover number 3. You can see across all 3 of these books, I had the same font for my name. I had the same font on the covers. Everything was well branded as far as this series. When you looked at the side of them, the sides were well branded, along with the back covers, which only those who had paperbacks would have ever seen that. I understood branding enough. The problem was, is I felt like I branded maybe a little bit too much in a sense, because I love black and white covers. And at one point, all of my books in the 2014-2015 time period were black and white covers with neon text. There was this one, but still it's like a black and white cover with neon text. So the problem was, people didn't really understand where to start, so they would kind of look at my backlist and be like, oh, it's all one series. When in reality, it was 2 different series and a standalone spin-off series of the first one. But it was very confusing for people to understand that because of the way that my covers were branded. Covers are really important. I think that I stayed in my lane, but I stayed in my lane a little bit too much because I didn't do the market research that I probably should have done before publishing, because then I probably could have chosen covers that were actually more fit for the genre. These are more like a romantic suspense love triangle series, and so for me the black and white just screamed romantic suspense. But I have an office romance which is not romantic suspense, and it's also a black and white cover, and this is just a suspense book and it's a black and white cover. So I think staying in my lane and having that tunnel vision kind of hindered me, because I should have done a little bit more market research. I should have researched also what tropes, what types of books were selling really well at that time period as well. So those are two main things that when I look back at my first year of publishing, that's one of the things that I'm like, yeah, I probably should have thought about that a little bit more. The second mistake that I made, which is probably going to take the most time, is not sticking to my marketing plan and release schedule. It is very easy as a self-published author to be like, I'm just gonna move that release date, like no big deal, totally gonna move it. I think it's so important that if you give a release date, that you really try to stick to that release date. I realize now that so many people have done this over the years, that they've promised books to release at certain dates and then they don't come out. I'm sorry, I'm very guilty of this. I know this. I know this so much. Like, I get messages weekly about a book that I have not written yet that is now like past due by 3 years. Do not let me set the example for you, because it bothers me that I have not finished a series that is still out there right now. But with that being said, I think that if you give release dates and you say this book is coming out on this date, that it is important to really try to put that book out. I do not like moving release dates. Since I've been writing under Kennedy Fox, we've only done it once, and it happened literally. We've been publishing together for 3 years in October, and this will be the first time that we've ever had to move a date, and we only moved it by 30 days. I feel like if you're going to give release dates and you're going to promise books, it's so important to give those books when you say you're going to give those books, because as a newbie, you have to build trust with your readership. As Kennedy Fox, with 15+ books released, our readers know that when we promise stuff, we're gonna deliver. We've never not delivered. We're gonna do it. But as a newbie author who maybe has 1 or 2 books in your backlist and then you don't release a book like you promise, that's an issue. People start to not trust you because you're new and you're still trying to find your footing. And I think that that is one thing that I messed up on. So I was kind of rapid releasing before it was like a super big deal. And so I released my first book in January. I released my second book in March. I was planning to release the third book in the Weakness trilogy like a few months after the second one, and I couldn't write it. I experienced burnout and writer's block very early on. I was lucky. I made money on my books right off of the bat. I was in the green the first week of every book that I have ever published, ever, still to this day. But the problem is people were very interested in finishing these series and I couldn't write it, and I was having issues and I struggled so hard. It was like seriously one of the very hardest lessons that I learned very, very early on. Granted, I was working a full-time job. I had just switched positions at my job. I had gotten promoted. I was a supervisor. I was basically overseeing like 12 people, and it was just a lot for me to do at once. And in hindsight, I promised this book. I didn't give a date, which was very good because I didn't want to promise something and not be able to deliver. But I told people that the third book was going to come out very quickly after the second one. I was very vocal about that, and I couldn't write it. And I tried really hard. I couldn't do it. I remember at one point when I was supposed to be writing the third book to the Weakness series, I was sitting in my office at work, in my big fancy office in the corporate building, and this story just came to me. It was about this guy who was like a modern day Batman in London, who basically ruled this gang and who like fought the bad guys, and he was a bad guy fighting other bad guys, and it was like this whole world that just totally consumed me. And I remember grabbing a post-it note and I was like, oh my god, I just had the best idea for a book, and I had the blurb like that. And I went home that night and I started writing that book, and I ended up writing that book instead of writing the third weakness book. The mistake comes whenever I released a book that wasn't like the other two books that I had released. Although it was a spinoff, it wasn't really a romance. It was more of a dark suspense book. My audience was confused. They were completely confused. I released it in between book 1 and 2 of the Weakness series, the day that Kindle Unlimited launched on Amazon. It was July 21st of 2014. And I didn't enroll the book into the Kindle Unlimited program because I really didn't trust it. In hindsight, I still don't trust it. But that's a whole other video. I didn't take advantage of Kindle Unlimited. I was a new author and I confused my audience. I released something that wasn't like the brand that I had put out that I was releasing, and so everybody was confused. I think that I didn't realize that I probably should have stuck to one genre, and I see a lot of newbie authors do that now. They're like, oh, I'm gonna write these 2 books and they're gonna be these fun fluffy contemporaries, and then I'm gonna do this dark romance, and now I'm gonna do this paranormal romance, and now I'm gonna go and do this fantasy young adult book, and I'm gonna publish it all under the same name. And so when people look at what you're doing, they're confused by what you have to offer. Are you a hodgepodge? Are you a quilt of many different colors? Like, I feel like with pen names and self-publishing, your pen name needs to have a certain brand. There are unicorns out there. There are authors that are very well established that can write in whatever genre they want to, and they do fabulous. But as a newbie today, I don't think that that is really the case, and I would be very wary of doing that. In 2014, I made that mistake, and it's one that I don't regret making, but one that I see now as a mistake that probably hindered my growth. I wrote that book, I released it, and I decided, okay, yes, now I am ready. I'm actually ready to write the 3rd book of the Weakness series. And it took me like 4 months to write. The book ended up not releasing until January of 2015, which was an entire year after the first book. And at that point, all of the excitement, all of the interest, all of the people that were so excited after book 2, it had died down. It's like a candle. You light it, you put it out there, and it burned for a year. And so the wick was low, the wax was low, it didn't even have a smell anymore, and it was like starting completely over, trying to get people to pick up that 3rd book. And you can see that 100% in the reviews. Book 1 has a lot of reviews. Book 2, they dropped off. Book 3, they're basically non-existent. And that's because of my release schedule. That's also because I confused my readers. So the people who liked Eluded went to read Week for Him, Week Without Him, and they were just kind of like, I don't get it. And so the people who read this and moved to Eluded were like, I don't get it. Where's the love story? So people were thoroughly confused because I didn't stick to my brand, I didn't stick to my genre, I didn't stick to things, and it was a huge mistake. So please listen to me when I say, if you are a newbie and you think that you want to write in all these different genres, wait until you're established first and then try it. And even then, it might not work out for you, because sometimes contemporary readers do not want to read paranormal, okay? And vice versa. If you're a PNR author and you try to switch to contemporary, you could probably do that, but I don't know if there's a whole lot of crossover between just straight contemporary to paranormal romance or regular romance to paranormal romance. It is basically a bridge. Yes, they're both romance, but some people do not want to read things that are not realistic. And there are people who do not want to read things that are realistic. And so, you know, you've got that cross. And so I think that I would be very careful with switching genres very, very early on. I learned that the hard way. It's not something that I would do again. Those 3 things I think really hindered my growth in the first year. I was good at social media. I didn't have issues with that. I had really crappy teasers. My teasers were the worst. If you follow me on Facebook, Oh my god, my teasers were so bad. They're cringeworthy. I sometimes share them now because they're so bad that all the new indies now, like your teasers are good. Mine sucked. It's like basically comparable to how I look as a 12-year-old and how kids today look. How indie authors in 2014 are now compared to indie authors starting out in 2019. Like, cover designers know what they're doing now. They know how to make teasers. Back in the day, I made all my own teasers and my cover designer was, things are a lot different. Things are more fast-paced. I think that you have to be a lot more aware of branding today than you had to be back in 2014. So looking back on it, I think those are the biggest things that I did wrong in my first year of self-publishing. Just stay in your lane, but not too much. Do market research. Do some studying on branding in your genre. Stick to your genre, and I think you'll be fine. I could give you a rule book, but you're still gonna make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. It's not a big deal. When you've been around for 5+ years, you look back at that stuff and you're like, aw, how cute were you as a little indie author, a little newbie indie author? I remember those days, the good old days when you just think you could publish anything. Things have changed. Things will continue to change. Mistakes will continue to be made, and nobody out there is perfect. Nobody out there knows everything. Nobody out there can tell you exactly what you need to do. There's no secret formula to being a #1 best-selling author or any of that stuff. There's no secrets, guys. It's a lot of trial and error, and if anybody tells you they know everything about self-publishing, they are lying. Okay. Anyway, I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that you got some insight into the mistakes that I made. Hopefully you are not making those mistakes, and if you are, stop it. Stop it right now. I will do you the favor. I lived that life for you. It was not a fun one, but I don't regret it. I don't regret anything that I've done. It has helped me understand more about myself. It was the catapult of where I am today. It will always be the foundation that I laid for my self-publishing journey. So no, I do not regret it. I'm thankful for all the mistakes I made. It makes me more grateful for the success that I have, knowing where I came from and how hard that I've worked over the years. So I hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions for me, as always, feel free to leave them below. I hope that you have a great week. You write all those words, and then I'll see you again in my next video. Bye.